Hello, time for another stream. Today I'm doing it at this time rather than a bit later, but I announced that earlier anyway. So in this stream ideally we want to be talking about sort of how different nations are sort of planning for coronavirus, or how it's affecting them at the moment, what they're doing as action plans. I'm sure the stream will go off topic as usual, but what action plans seem to be working better than others. Again, as I've said before, and lots of people have said, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong all seem to be doing a much better job than a lot of countries are. So, Gretchen, today I wouldn't say I'm really much better today, unfortunately. My glands are quite swollen, so I've got quite a bit of pain sort of in jaw and the ear area, but otherwise I'm not too bad, a bit lethargic and that, but I'm sure I'll be all right in a few more days, So, White Wolf, your boss is basically breaking sensible quarantine rules. But the interesting thing is, it seems like a lot of countries that had to put up, like somebody was saying to me on a video earlier, because in Hong Kong they obviously had SARS in 2003. In Hong Kong they've taken much better action because they basically had SARS, so they know what they're dealing with a bit more. Whereas in the UK, obviously, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but they seem to be constantly flip-flopping between what they're doing. Like where they were saying, they're not going to do anything, and now they're saying, old people might have to stay in for months, and we need loads of new ventilators. I wonder why. Cheers, Gretchen. Yeah, a lot of nations are closing borders though at the moment, so that doesn't really surprise me. But yeah, I mean, the problem is if you've already got a lot of cases in your country, closing borders isn't going to do much, is it? If they closed borders a lot earlier, before that country had a lot of cases, if their neighbouring countries or whatever had cases, that would be sensible. But doing it now doesn't really do much, does it? It's doing the, thing of closing the barn door, closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. It's that kind of attitude I think a lot of countries are doing, where they're like, we'll take a step now, even though it's too late to have any effect. I would say, Joe, do not use a diving rebreather unless you're trained to use one. The reason is that you can suffocate very easily with them, or stuff can go horribly wrong with them. So yeah, you have to think again, Truth, Love and Honor, how many people, some of those people who test positive might have been in contact with and potentially infecting. That's especially why companies need to take the attitude of, if you're showing symptoms, don't go to work. Yeah, exactly, a troubled man. They don't seem to be considering a lot of this stuff, do they? Telling them, we told people not to isolate, but now we're telling them to isolate, but we're not making any consideration on how they'll get food or whatever else. Right, Peach. Right, so I think it's probably going to go very wrong, Brandon, but again, we'll have to just see probably in a few months' time, won't we, what the numbers look like in different countries. But I don't think it's going to work very well. So yeah, to look at the cases, Italy had 3,590 cases today and plus 368 deaths. Of course, that's really bad. Essentially 10% of the new cases were deaths. Pretty grim. Iran, 1,209 cases, 113 deaths. South Korea, plus 76 cases and 3 deaths. Spain, 1,407 cases and 96 deaths. So Spain's like a week behind Italy by the look of it. Germany, 1,214 cases and 2 deaths. France, 30 cases, no deaths. USA, 386 cases and 6 deaths. Switzerland, 842 cases and 1 death. The UK, 232 cases plus 14 deaths. Netherlands, 176 cases and 8 deaths. Norway, 122 new cases. Yeah, the list goes on, but it seems like most European countries are getting around 200 plus new cases today, unless they're like Italy, getting in the thousands at this point. Right, generally with these streams, I try and read out stuff when it's questions or sort of important statements. A bit, but vowels, but I don't know how to pronounce your first name, but annoyingly, it's been like the last couple of days I was a bit worse than I was Friday, but the trend is up. The trends are good. Temperature and blood oxygen is still fine. But thankfully, I had this weekend booked off of work as holiday, because otherwise I'd have probably had to, had it off sick, because at the moment they're literally telling people if you've got the symptoms, do not go to work. And they're saying that at least at government level in the UK, that, your employer can potentially get into a lot of trouble if they try and get precious staff to going in if they're ill. But yeah, thankfully I had this weekend booked off as a holiday anyway. Well, you can't get tested, White Wolf, unless you've been to like Italy or whatever. They're not testing people anymore, except for people in bad condition in the hospital. But if you're managing all right, there's no point in the UK even wasting your time trying to get tested, because you won't even, get the results. Because at the moment, basically, if you phone 111, well, at the moment now they're telling people not to phone 111 unless they're in bad condition. They're telling you just to look online, see if you've got the symptoms, and then self-isolate them. So basically, I've been self-isolating really, but and then if you've got enough symptoms that it could be dangerous, that's the point when they send you into hospital and may test you. "111" in the UK is basically like a non-emergency version of 999, which is the emergency number. So it's like if you're in the US, it'd be like having 911 and then having a non-emergency number, which you can phone to ask for advice. But I'm not from Norway, but you can ask your question anyway, and somebody might be able to answer you. Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me, Lewis, does it? But well, in my car, Never Start, I've got the Spaziani TR2002, and that's a very good mask for just keeping in the car. Yeah, in London, English nationalists, they've been saying to people that the tube and buses carry no risk of infection, haven't they? Which is complete bollocks. Sadly, Vlad, not any better than Friday, but in general, the trend is I'm feeling better this week, yeah. But the problem is it seems to be very much kind of like that, going on the upwards trend where some days are better than other days, or, a couple of days in a row. Today I've just been very tired and I've got like quite inflamed sinuses and glands again. We haven't really talked about Spain on this stream yet, Dan, but they're locking stuff down, aren't they? And Spain's numbers are pretty grim. Spain just seems like it's a week behind Italy. Let's open up both Spain and Italy and look up where Spain is now, how many days ago it was like Italy. So Spain was 1,407 new cases today and 96 deaths. So what day on Italy was Italy's new cases around that number? Probably about March the 8th, so about 1 week ago. Yeah, so I'd say Spain is about 1 week behind Italy if you look at the historic figures coming out of the countries. Yeah, there was another 11 deaths today. 666, yeah, in the UK. If you get the optical inserts for them, Eduardo, yes, it's good for glasses, but like all masks, you can't wear regular glasses underneath inside the mask. Yeah, most countries in Europe at the moment seem to be locking down more and more every day, every week, truth, love and honour, except the UK, which seems to be taking on the everything will be fine approach. My condolences, Gringo Troller, but I mean, you have to consider your own health first, don't you, if you have underlying health conditions. But again, yeah, people dying of the flu. I know people do obviously die of the flu, but at the moment when you've got something spreading around that's like 30 times the mortality rate of flu with similar symptoms to the flu, you've got to wonder how many of these people really have flu. But apparently that's been the thing in a lot of countries. There's worse flu deaths this year than other years, and makes you think, are they really flu deaths, or are they just, they're not bothering testing for corona? Right, so I've got some good news for people. My video tomorrow is about this, but for people wanting masks, if you go on eBay at the moment, at least in the UK, and type in surplus gas mask, there's a lot of the surplus masks that are fairly good in quality at like the £20 to £30 price range again now. It's up to you, Wowlol. I mean, as long as you take sensible precautions, I don't think it matters, but especially if you've got bad plumbing that can be, bad in itself. Well, I've already covered this a few times, 6mm, but I think personally it's pretty dreadful. I know people are arguing either way. But I think we should have taken the approach a lot of Asian countries did, which was right from the get-go taking measures and, you know, saying you have to wear masks in public and stuff like that. We'll see, Count Vlad. I'd rather just try and give people information and hope it's useful, but that doesn't surprise me, Nordic resilience. That's what one of the people said that was like a UK person who got it in Wuhan said, like, it first felt like they had a cold, then they got better, then they felt like they had the flu and it got better, and then they got pneumonia. At the moment, it seems to be with me, you know, I'm not saying I've got corona, it could just be flu, but saying that, I think you'd be over flu by now if you had flu, because flu normally only lasts like 3 or 4 days. But at the moment, what I seem to have is the thing where, you know, you feel shitty for a couple of days, you start feeling a bit better, then you start feeling shitty again, but not as bad as before, then a bit better. I'm sure in the US it would be legal, never start builds, but again, maybe certain states have rules against it, certain cops might not like it, I don't know. That would be completely fine, English nationalists, as long as you've got the P3 pads, they'd be fine. So yeah, if you've got them in front of the A1 filter, that would be fine. I won't say where it was, Ragley, but in a very local area to me, there's a case, and that person had probably been into a lot of the local shops and, you know, on public transport in a local area. So I imagine cases might explode in my area soon. I didn't personally know the person, but it was on our local news about, you know, where they worked and all that stuff. So it's certainly my local area. Yeah, Idenitz particulate protection you need as in like P3, P100 filters. I'm sure they did Dust Devil, unless they exactly copied the M17 sizes, because that was just small, medium, large as far as I'm aware. But I actually don't know then, but size 3 I'd assume would be pretty large on those, wouldn't it? They're certainly better than nothing Neverstar, but with an N95 mask, you need to make sure it's a good face fit, because I've noticed a lot of the sort of disposable N95s are really poor for getting a good face fit, so, you know, it needs to seal around your face properly like that. And again, most N95s are essentially P1 rated, which means they're not all that good in terms of particle protection. I'd certainly rather have it than nothing, or a surgical mask. But the Avon S10 is 40mm NATO, but a Polish FP5 will fit on absolutely fine. Gas the runner. Yeah, sadly, little Vamp is going to carry on just doing that, I think. You know, even though they're putting measures in place, I think it's too little too late at this point. You know, and I think this is the problem we're going to see in the UK, is once you end up having, you know, a lot of cases, it doesn't matter what stuff you put in. The easiest way for people wanting to know what size a mask they might need is to use a GP5 size chart and try and put the sizes over to equivalent masks. So there's a GP5 size chart on my wall on that poster there. If I just get one up as an image and put it in the chat. Here we go. So let me just see if I can get this image up as a proper image to link into the chat. No, I can't because Google's crap thing now. All right, let's see. Oh, it's linked to the same site again. Brilliant. Is this site I'm going to link? No. Right, anyway, search GP5 size chart into Google or another search engine and see if you can get one of the images up. But for people asking about sizes, GP5s, for example, are in sizes 0 to 4, 0 being the smallest, 4 being the largest. If you measure your head for a GP5 and then roughly translate those sizes into small, medium, large across most other masks, you'll probably get quite a good fit. Even if they measure your head slightly differently for them, it's just the easiest way of getting a measurement. It can, Uranus, if it's like not a cardboard type surface. So if there's like outer plastic covering and you got the parcel within 9 days of it being shipped, or somebody handled it that had the virus, so potentially, yeah, if your postman had a parcel, that could be a problem in itself. Not if your postman had a parcel, if your postman had the virus. I don't know, Martin, yet if we know if reinfection is all that certain, but the problem is obviously if you have a mutation down the line, you could certainly get a reinfection through that from a just slightly different strain of the virus. Supposedly, Chris, it doesn't live as well on cardboard because cardboard dries it out. But yeah, I suppose it depends if it's glossy cardboard or like dry cardboard. So if it's cardboard like this, it wouldn't live as long. But if it's, the glossier cardboard, it might be. Yeah, if you've got a UVC lamp, you might as well use it. Yeah, pickle, that's a good way of summing it up. Old Geiger counters and ionization chambers, masks on the shelves and in boxes. Yeah, Chris, taking a better safe than sorry approach is obviously sensible. Oh yeah, don't forget to like the stream, everybody that's come on, because currently there's a lot more people viewing than likes. No, I've never played Roblox. Right, let me check actually what Italy's current case fatality rate is according to Worldometers. 44%, which is pretty grim, isn't it? Only if I could get them cheaply, Astro, and they failed a lot of tests officially, so they're not worth the money if they're like $300 all that. Probably about 150 odd, Thomas. I don't have even a spreadsheet of them all on anymore. I'm not a gaming channel, stream binary. Nordic said, read also something about the reinfection, and they picked up positive results in cured victims. It could be virus strains, but disabled by the immune system, but enough to trigger the PCR. Yeah, it's hard to say, because there's also people that were suggesting if somebody had it, like a week later they were discharged from hospital or something, but then they ended up getting something else and were coming back into hospital and were swabbed or whatever, they could then get another positive result then. I think it was what they called like NIOSH tests, Astro, to do with meeting like Western standards for like, different gas safety type things. Survive said, all the GP surgeries have closed in my area. They did not notify. Check yours is open and what to do. I get a phone number. I've got a phone number for mine, but yeah, it's good advice for people that are in this area. It looks like they've dropped the ball quite a bit, Max, but in the UK, they've done the same thing here. But I know the US was doing a thing where it was quite hard to get tested, even for the people that wanted to get tested, or expensive. And there were like dodgy test kits and not enough test kits. So, Cheers, Muscle Sheriff. I have no idea, Iron Drac, because I'm not a virologist or like a biologist or anything, but if it doesn't lose its potency and it becomes like a yearly flu outbreak kind of thing, then that would be pretty serious, wouldn't it? Because it means you've got a virus that kills off a few percent of the population every year when it comes around. I mean, if it gets a lot milder over time, then it would just be like another flu, I guess, but then it's on top of the flu rather than instead of the flu. That's right, Infinity. Henry says, which country do you think is doing the most to prevent the virus right now? As I was saying before, mostly some of the East Asian countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, things like that, because what they're doing was very early on, they closed a lot of schools, closed a lot of borders, things like that. Remember, they did stuff before they got the cases, not saying, oh, we're at a certain number of cases now, so maybe we should do this, do that. They were very keen on people wearing masks in public, so it slows down the rate of infection. So it's harder for people to spread it and harder for other people to get infected. So they just took a lot of action preemptively, whereas a lot of governments, including the UK, are basically saying, oh, if it gets to a certain level, we might do this. Then if it gets worse, we'll do this. Whereas you need to do those things in advance and to have any effect. Alex says, was there any info on the longest term? Oh, sorry, the chat's just suddenly moved. Let's see if I can find your comment again. You said, was there any info on the longest term post-disease symptoms of COVID? I don't know if there's been anything concrete. There's lots of stuff about it might cause lung damage long term. It might cause, like testicular damage in men, but I don't know how true any of this is. And, if there's, a big consensus across it. Oh, just to mention this to anybody who doesn't know, if you want to support me, you can either donate via Super Chats on the side, donate via Patreon, or buy merchandise. I've not got any of the merch on me today. I have like hoodies and mugs and that. But if you just want to watch and like the videos, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much regardless. Yeah, it's very distressing, isn't it, little man? It wouldn't surprise me. They're doing it in Iran. H1N1, it's hard to say, because H1N1, they think after all was said and done, it probably killed like 500,000 people across the world. But again, the problem is this is a virus that's been around for a couple of months, since maybe November, December last year. It's not been around for like a year or two at this point. So we have to look at it as it's developing, not how bad will it be when all is said and done. But if you look at the R0 of it, as in how infectious it is and how dangerous it seems to be, I would say it's a lot worse than a lot of flu strains. Mana says, where can I find a gas mask? I cannot find it anywhere. Go on eBay and see if you can find any on eBay. There should be a lot on eBay. Type in surplus gas mask, or respirator, something like that. There is respirator merch if you look in the description. Or not description, in the Teespring and look through them. Sadly, it's not that easy, Astro. I'd love to if it was just a case of you could sketch up a design and have it made. Thank you, Neverstar Builds. I don't know, because I've heard, again, there could be stuff like second strains of it, but I've not heard enough info, so I don't want to say it will definitely have like a second wave or a second strain or whatever. But they think there's two strains going around, don't they? And they think why it could be quite bad in Italy and Iran is that they've got the worst strain. But also, don't forget, I think a lot of it comes down to China lied about the numbers, didn't accurately report numbers. So a lot of people are going, oh, China must have had a different strain because it did less damage in China. No, I'm sure it did a lot of damage and they just lied about the numbers. To give you some context, in China, they've supposedly in total had 80,849 cases and 3,199 deaths. Italy is currently at 24,747 cases and 1,809 deaths. So compare the numbers infected, but the case fatality rate in China and Italy, it tells you something's a bit up with the Chinese numbers if you didn't know before. Because China has a 5% fatality rate, Italy has a 44% fatality rate, and Italy has very good healthcare systems. So, that does make you think. The Shums is all right if you get GOST filters for it, Henry, or normalized filters that fit it. Yeah, Stuart565, the whole attitude constantly changes, doesn't it? That's what I'm saying. That's why I don't like the mainstream media, and a lot of people don't, because you can't believe a word they say. Yeah, I've heard, Nordic, it's not as bad as SARS in terms of long-term damage, but again, we don't really know, I guess, of a lot of the info yet, and because it's happening now, and the earliest cases would have been November or December last year. Thank you, Eric. Is Republic of Korea South Korea? Because it's Democratic Republic of Korea, isn't it? Funnily enough, North Korea, because commies love putting democratic in the name of their countries. I don't think they're really lying. I think just South Korea was very aggressive to begin with in targeting it and dealing with it. But yeah, because if we look at South Korea, it says they've got 8,162 cases and 75 deaths. So they've reported way less deaths than Italy, but they've also got less infections. So assuming that it's just not a lack of testing and saying the deaths were down to other things, with Korea, it could have been because they were putting people into hospital very early on and isolating people. They've slowed down the rate of infection, and hospitals haven't been overwhelmed. Yeah. What Al Chapo said is a very good point. He was making the point that because Italy has a high population of old people, then obviously they are going to be more vulnerable to it, which is a very good point. Right, glad you've got your check M10 set up, but for anybody with a cheek filter mask, get the filters in them before it's too late, because you don't want to really quickly need the mask and then be going, oh shit, I can't get the filters in the mask. Sadly, probably not White Wolf, especially because China's now blaming this on other countries, not like the Chinese people, but the Chinese Communist Party. They've been saying Italy should be thanking them for the time they gave them to prepare, even though, yeah, thanks China for giving Italy a deadly disease. I'm sure we all appreciate it. And they're blaming the Americans for creating the virus. You know, a bit like some Russian nationalists say now Chernobyl happened because the CIA blew up the reactor. Not they made really shit low quality RBMK reactors and the staff weren't trying to use them properly. And then they covered up all the flaws in them. You know, it's more likely, isn't it? Yeah, P3 is enough. I mean, P3 is the top level of protection you can get for particle filters. I mean, whether or not any company's ever made ones that are greater than P3 in terms of protection, but a bit more air resistance. You can certainly wear your GP5 Bliat Man. Bear in mind the green filters on GP5s contain asbestos, but up to you if you do it. And I'm going to stop you spamming the chat, person spamming the chat. Oh, I've just blocked him permanently, Peach, rather than timing them out, but thank you. Colin says, okay, I have a huge question. What is the thing? Is it okay to wear your face mask out in public? What country are you in, Colin? In the UK, there's no rules about wearing masks out in public, but I'd be very careful if you went into a bank or like a petrol station or something like that, just because, you know, in certain places they might think you're trying to rob somewhere or do something, you know, suspicious. Let me search CFF3 French filters. Are they the same ones that were also called CFF3 Italian filters? Oh yeah, they're the same ones. I don't know if they're actually French or Italian. They look absolutely fine, but I've never got them over here. But I know in the US they were quite cheap for a while. I'm sure they're absolutely fine. They're NBC filters, aren't they? So they're probably P3 rated at the front. Henry said, will a Soviet filter work on the virus? I put a 3M particulate filter. Yes, if it's in good condition, but what you're going to have to do is with the 3M filter, you're going to have to put a load of plumbing tape or duct tape or something around the thread because it won't evenly match up because it's not a GOST thread on the 3M filter. But if you tape it to the mask, it should be fine. Alex said, do you know Jog Sprav's channel? He is a German man who's building projectile weapons. You would like it? Yeah, Slingshot channel. Let me show you its features. Yeah, I know Jorg or Jurg, or however his name's pronounced. I don't watch all his videos, but some of his videos I find very interesting. As far as I'm aware, Aaron, sadly there are not P4 and P5 filters, but if there were, I'd be saying get P4 filters over P3 filters. But what things have you had happen in the US then, James? I've heard there's obviously been more deaths and cases, but what strange things have been going on there? Is it like weird conflicting government advice or what? Because we're certainly getting that in the UK. As in where yesterday they were doing all the, and yesterday and before yesterday they were saying, you know, we have no need to do a lot of these things. Now all of a sudden saying, oh, people over 70 might for 4 months have to be locked in their houses, essentially. My dad was saying to me today, he's like, oh, fuck that, I'm not getting locked in the house. You know, I'm going to go out if I want to go out. The gas mask said, I have headaches and a sore throat and a drippy nose, or what you call it, do I have corona? Well, there's no way of knowing without you being tested. Obviously, keep an eye on it. If it gets worse, phone your nation's non-emergency number and see what they suggest. But without actually being tested for corona, you don't know. Because I've had like flu symptoms since last Sunday. Some days they get better, some days they get worse, you know, and is that corona? I don't know, you know, no way of knowing without a test. But in the UK, they're only testing people now that are in really poor condition, or if you're like kind of rich or famous enough or important enough to be tested. Because the UK has this bizarre idea, Catch-Owl, that if they don't do anything, we'll get immunity to it once enough people get infected. Personally, I think that's going to go very badly wrong, but, you know, some scientists say otherwise. They had somebody on the radio yesterday shaming people that don't think the UK's plan will work, just saying you're too stupid to understand it if you don't think it will work. But then today there was like a letter signed by 230 doctors and scientists saying that there was a massive flaw in the UK's plan. So I don't know, do you trust like the two scientists working for the government who say the plan will work? Or do you trust like hundreds of doctors and scientists that write an open letter saying how bad the government's plans are. On LBC yesterday, Sam, there was some doctor basically saying, yes, you're stupid if you stockpile anything, stupid if you wear a mask, stupid if you don't think the government's doing the right thing. You know, I thought that doctor was a bit of a cunt, to be honest, but that's my opinion. Cheers, Tad. He says, Illinois governor banned gun sales, model Abe. Does that break the US Constitution, them doing that, or are they allowed to do that under some sort of emergency powers? But, you know, Second Amendment's pretty important to you Americans. Tesco's propaganda ministry, hello, said, I read they were planning on deploying troops to supermarkets and hospitals to stop looting or panic buying. I'm sure nobody will panic when they see the military around. Yeah. I think a lot of supermarkets at the moment are doing this weird thing of they're running out of stock, but they're saying, don't worry, there's not a problem with stock, but don't be selfish and don't buy more than like one or two of a certain item. Yeah, it's all conflicting information, isn't it? Victor says, which gas mask is the best? My personal favourite out of the ones I own is the Avon CT12, followed up closely by the Spassiani TR2002. In no way are they the best masks in the world, they're just my personal favourite. You'd have to look at what features you want in a mask. In the last stream, I was wearing a Czech CM4. Some of these might still be on eBay for a reasonable price. Let me look them up for you. I think all the stocks of them from UK surplus sellers ran out, but I think some sellers still have them in Eastern Europe. Yeah, you can get them for about £30. This person posts worldwide, apparently. Thank you. I was just about to hide that person, but somebody else did it for me. But yeah, Czech CM4s are very good masks. I kind of prefer the CM3 because just for some strange reason, the Czech CM3 fits me better than this one does. Although this is a size 5, so it might be this one's just a bit too big for me. But personally, I just find the CM3 makes a better face seal for me. Post Tyrone said, could I get a Scott Pro 2000 CF22 A2P free filter with 40mm thread on no rush mask? You can force it in, add another washer to the GP5 or whatever before you put the filter in. Once you've put the filter in, put some like tape over the thread bit to make it airtight, but otherwise it will work. It's just you can't screw in NATO filters into Ghost masks properly and just get them to work off the bat. You have to do additional steps. I reckon it might be worse, Ben West. Let's hope it's not, but I reckon, you know, where a lot of people haven't been taking it seriously for far too long, it has all the potential to be bad. Yeah, exactly, Stuart. That's the problem, is they actually said today that they're in desperate need of more ventilators. So they've literally said, oh, our plan is to let everybody get infected over a period of time. And now they've gone, oh, shit, we don't have enough ventilators. Yeah, no shit, this is going to get bad. That's good cause. Yeah, hand them out to people as and when they need them, not, you know, letting people buy hundreds themselves and then stopping other people getting supply. Thank you again, Eric. He said, what if it turns out to be really deadly? Over. I don't think it will wipe out everybody on Earth. I don't think any virus will ever do that, because I'm sure you get some people that are always immune, you know, and stuff like that, or some people who never get into contact with it, but it could potentially be quite bad. But again, I don't want to scare anybody, and like I said, I'm just going off of what I think from being, you know, looking at the data since early January, mid-January, when people started asking me to do videos on it. But I think it was quite obvious to people a long time ago that, you know, it had the potential to get quite bad, and then you go like, oh, you stupid preppers, it's not going to get bad, it's just the flu. And then look what's happening all across Europe now, and look what's happened to the international markets. Oh, look, everything's fucking tanked, you know, because people didn't take it seriously and they were belittling people that looked into it. If you mean, do I have Victor basically like a fireman's type unit, as in like a mask of an air tank? No, not in that regard. I have got a rebreather with a scrubber unit that's not activated that would work, but I'm personally not a fan of them. Thanks again, Eric. He said, if it destroys the economy, 95% plus of people will die. Yeah, it could be quite grim, especially in some countries. Also, it's all the knock-on effects, isn't it, where people don't think about economic damage, you know, overwhelming of hospitals, supply chains being disrupted. especially again because lots of countries rely on food coming from other places, medication coming from other countries. You know, if suddenly they've got no food or medication coming into their country, then that's going to be serious. Don't forget to like the stream, everybody. Stop spamming the question, Victor, out of gas mask or an air tank. I answered you. Where can you buy what, Samuel? Yeah, exactly, Mark. That should have been the first sign to a lot of people that it was serious. You know, people going, oh, yeah. Well, Anonymous, have you not been following everything that's been going on recently? That's the reason lots of masks have inflated in price. And S10s have been going up anyway because they've not been producing S10s for like 10 years now or something. But as I was saying, to people that want masks, I've got a video suggesting a few masks tomorrow, but for anybody in the UK that wants a decentish mask at a price, let me link one. This seller has them in for about, in total with postage, they're probably about £15 from this seller. But it's a CM3 in various sizes with the filter and with the bag. So at the moment, with considering how overpriced some masks are, that's not bad at all. Lots of supermarkets are certainly running out of toilet paper. Right, so what's Jurigan number 2 saying? He said, man, I live in India. Pune and the virus last detected was in, 8 kilometers of my current home. I'm scared as fuck. Also, there's the board's examination going and what we have to go to give it. I don't understand all your comment, but yeah, stay safe if it's close to you. There was a case that was like half a mile from me, so that's not very reassuring, is it? Yeah, Olive, with that suggestion, that's good for a lot of things. Same with respirators. A lot of people are saying small town hardware stores and things like that still have masks in stock, even when the big supply chains have run out, because people haven't thought to look in them. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, Aussie Prepper, isn't it? If somebody last year said in 2020 people will be fighting over toilet paper, would you have believed it? I wouldn't. You know, this is the funny world we live in, isn't it? A lot of supermarkets are getting pasta and rice back in stock in the UK, and they're just only allowing you to buy like 1 or 2 bags per person. Henry says his school doesn't even seem worried about the virus. We started assembly and parties. Yeah, that's very sensible. You think if they were keeping schools open, you would not have assemblies anymore. Because if it was like when I was at primary school and secondary school, the assembly was basically where you had all the kids sit on the floor in a big hall. And when I was at secondary school, we'd have had easily over a couple of thousand students because we had like year 7 to year 12 or whatever it was, or year 13. Yeah, it'd be year 13 because you had year 7 to year 11, and then you had the 2 years of sixth form for the people who did it. And in each year group, typically you had like 30 to 40 kids in the form, and you had 6 forms per year. So that's 180 odd kids per year, and then you've got several years. So I'd say you easily had over 1,000 kids there. Again, and they're all just packed, you know, sitting row to row in a big assembly hall, like in a sports hall, essentially. So yeah, they're going to spread it, aren't they, in that kind of regard? That's a bit annoying, Lewis, but that was the thing happening when the first stuff happened in China. Lots of sellers were buying all the masks so they could then sell them at a massively inflated price to people who are desperate. Is that another 14 little vamp? Because I saw they were saying 14 as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Let me have a look on Channel 4 here. Let's see. Channel 4 news. I think it's that they've been behind on their news report. So they were reporting 21 when everybody else had gone, sorry, to 35. So yeah, it's still 35. Only if it's under UVB light for hours and hours and hours continuously, gas the runner, I imagine. I don't actually know, Farmlad. They did most other masks in white and black, but I don't know if I've ever seen a black PMG. There's black shums. I find the S10 comfortable. Some people might not. The problem with all the masks is literally they're generally designed for a certain kind of face shape. So if you have a face shape that's radically different than the mask, it might not either fit you or it might be very uncomfortable. It's why I find some masks are really comfortable and some aren't. Discharge said sport shut down. All the raging energy of sport fans going to be directed where? Who knows? Rioting, pub fights. I don't know. Pontifex Maximus said, got my MP5 mask the other day and ordered some P3 filters just now. Good. Nice thing of the Polish MP5 is it's, the thread on the mask is at least 40mm NATO, so you don't have to worry too much like you would if you'd bought a GP5 or something about, you know, modifying filters to fit it or whatever. Right, people putting false information in the stream I'm just getting rid of. Somebody was saying that rubbing alcohol will harm you. Right, I'm just going to explain that. Don't drink rubbing alcohol for obvious reasons. It won't harm you if you're using it to disinfect stuff. Again, don't huff the vapors on it. Don't drink it. You know, if you've got cuts, don't keep pouring loads and loads and loads of it on every day. But don't speak shit by saying disinfectant harms you. Just because, again, you might scare actual people who want to use disinfectant away from using it, saying stuff like that. Again, it's just using common sense. Don't talk, you know, random shit about items. Cheers, Samuel. Zyfuk says his college is right next to a hospital, which is cases being treated there. Students go over there to get food, and my college isn't worried. Should I still be going to college? It's completely up to you. I don't want to tell anybody not to go to college, not to go to their job or whatever. But again, if you're in an area where there's a lot of cases, you might have to at some point think, when does your health and your family's health come first, you know? Any alternatives to alcohol? Bleach, dark feather swan, diluted bleach, hydrogen peroxide. There's a few things. You can find lists online of all the things you can use. But rubbing alcohol is generally the cheapest things. I wouldn't say it's necessary to get a generator, MG Skull. Some people might want to get a generator, but I don't think all the power and all that's going to go out. I don't think it's going to be that kind of event. I just think it's going to be at the stage, you know, where lots of public services are impacted, and sadly, you'll probably get everybody will probably know quite a few people that die. Right, is there any interesting questions coming out? Jonas says, how to reseal a filter that doesn't have plugs on both sides. Ziploc bag would be good enough. You could also use a vacuum bag, or you could just put duct tape over the holes on each side of the filter. That would work as well, and then just pull it off when you want to use the filter again. Here's the thing, English Slav. If they're saying people have to be 1.5 meters apart, but like people saying they're still having assemblies and parties, then they're not following those rules, are they? So they shouldn't be open, you know. Is that really for going to the ambulance service, though, Ryan? Because it wouldn't surprise me if somebody's just trying to scam people out of masks to resell, though, making statements like that. Because I know a lot of people donating masks to China. The masks weren't going to the people that needed them. They were going to, like, CCP officials and, you know, like, random dickheads who were then reselling them or keeping them all for themselves. Most people, Victor, say that if they've worn masks to school, they've had them confiscated. Again, you should be allowed to wear them, but the fact is that, you know, a lot of places are being, you know, counter, you know, productive when it comes to stuff like that. For the people saying, well, the virus into your ears, I don't know. It can get in via your eyes, nose, and mouth. Don't know if it can get in via your ears. If you're worried about that, wear a raincoat hood, you know, something like that. Good, Darfax. I know on UK eBay they've done a thing now saying you can't list certain products over certain prices. You know, if it was an antique gas mask, you could probably still list it for a lot of money. But it's to stop people putting, you know, like N95 masks on for like £10 plus each, or hand gel for, you know, £10 to £50 each. I've never heard of that one, Staphis, but let me look it up. Just give me a second to Google it. Yeah, that looks absolutely fine. I assume it's 40mm. But again, it looks like, you know, any kind of sort of panoramic 40mm mask. So just make sure you get one in your size and you don't pay too much for it. But if you've got them available at a decent price, it should be fine. Oh yeah, just Rag said alcohol. Just for anybody wondering, drinking alcohol does not prevent you getting the virus. I thought I'd mention that because apparently some people are putting that out as misinformation. Like if you get dangerously drunk every day, it stops the virus getting in. No, alcohol is very good for sanitizing stuff. As Dr. John Campbell said in his video, you know, getting incredibly high blood alcohol percentage isn't going to stop you getting the virus. It's just dangerous that way. Yeah, it's John Smith's. Better than the Foster's that was in the fridge. It's got one of those weird widget things in here, though. You know, like those little plastic things that floats at the bottom. Or sinks at the bottom, whatever the right word is in. Well, Daniel, the only difference is a lot of people pour them into glass. It doesn't make a really difference to flavour. Saying that, with nice ales, I put them in a glass because I think it does improve the flavour slightly, but I don't see what's wrong with drinking a beer out the can. Peaky Blinder said, can you clean and reuse FFP3 NRD fold mask valve? Let me look it up. Is that like essentially... Not really. You could put them under UV light and hope it does it, but the problem with those masks is after a while they get damp and they kind of stop working because they get damp. I've already answered you, Victor. The answer is you probably could, but you might get it confiscated. I've got a UVC light, but it's never plugged in, Colin, unless I want to disinfect stuff. I use it to kill mold sometimes because it creates, you know, horrible ozone smells. But, you know, UVC damages your eyes and skin. So for anybody that's got a UVC light, don't stand under and look at it. Quite often FM12s are over £100 dash of awesome. So, you know, I wouldn't say that person's price gouging too much because often they are expensive. It's been in the fridge, Sean, for like 3 or 4 weeks. So I don't think it needs decontaminating. Yeah, it sounds good, English nationalist, if there's any pubs left. I don't know what random advice you want, Jorgen, but yeah, if generic 3M masks has gone through the roof, see how much half-face respirators sort of like these cost, and see how much full-face sort of military surplus masks cost, because often people are a bit slower to kind of mass buy those out. Oh, I didn't fall very far. Yeah, James, I know the ones with the XL valves on supposedly last longer, but yeah, even when you're breathing out of those, you're still going to get moisture on the inside. Obviously, a rubber mask, it doesn't matter if it gets damp inside, but when it's fabric, that deteriorates the materials. Yeah, that's a good idea, White Wolf. At least protect them. Some people have said it does, some people have said it doesn't. I really don't know regarding demethylated spirits and stuff like, white spirit and all those work. I really don't know. You'd have to probably ask somebody who really knows about it. But I know normally it's always suggested 70% alcohol. Ireland's taking it more seriously than the UK, so that's worrying if they're not taking it seriously, at least for us. But yeah, I heard as well there was like St. Patrick's Day things in certain cities where they were all cancelled, yet people still went out like pub crawling in massive numbers, you know, saying, oh, I'm not scared of a virus. Yeah, but you're going to spread it to other people and potentially kill them, aren't you? That's the selfish thing with all this. Right, Donald Hitler. With an old filter from the 1980s, it depends on what type of filter it is. Obviously, if it's a 1980s P1 filter, I'd very much doubt it. If it's a full NBC filter in good condition, then it probably would work. But again, it's really hard to say with something that old. Yeah, I'd say go for a higher percentage because that way you can water it down if you have to, but you're not going to run into the problem of it being too weak. If they've met all the qualifying things survive, as in to put like P3 on it and got the NEOSH ratings and all that, then they'll be fine because they have to meet the standards. I don't know what you mean by unknown brands, though. Can you give some examples? At the moment, about £20, I think, a filter for FP5s. A while ago, you could get them £7 to £10 a filter if they were out of date, and then a bit more if they were in date. But yeah, sadly, I think £20 is probably the cheapest you'll find FP5s for now. Right, I'm getting rid of the guy that keeps spamming questions. Why ask me a question if you're not going to listen to me answer it several times for you? So goodbye. I don't, just on a sidetrack, I'll never understand the mentality of asking questions and then not listening for an answer. Like, I can understand now and again if somebody has their internet lag out a bit or get a bit distracted. But when somebody repeatedly asks questions and then never listens to the answer but keeps spamming the question, I don't get it. Yeah, I did watch the Joe Rogan thing. It's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I did like, at least in that he did explain the difference between N95 masks and like surgical masks and all that stuff. Daniel says, why is the people wearing masks like N95 that don't seal in the open air streets is ridiculous? You're not supposed to be used in closed environments. N95s can work. It depends on how good the seal is around that bit. But ideally, I'd always say go for something better than N95. But an N95 can work under the best conditions. Bluefire X03 says, I'm thinking of getting a SHUM 41 GP5 relative or an M65 plus an FP5 filter. Which design, hood versus strap, would be better in terms of the strength of the seal? I'm so even fine. Just curious. Right. Personally, as much as a lot of people might say I'm wrong on this, I'm not a massive fan of the M65 simply due to the fact it doesn't seal well on my face. And a lot of people have told me in the comments over the years they never can get an M65 to seal. So I'd say a GP5 style mask is better in that regard. However, just bear in mind GP5s and all that require GOST filters, but if you're getting an FP5 for it, that's normalized, so it'll be fine. So I'd say go for a SHUM 41, GP5M, PMG2, Polish MUA, any of those. Completely up to you. But if you get a GP5 that's the same size as your head or like a centimetre smaller on the size guide, it's going to be pretty tight, which might make it a bit uncomfortable, but it's certainly not going to let air in. In general, I always recommend strap masks over it, but the problem with the M65 is the peripheral seal is just pretty garbage on the M65. Watch loads of my videos burning water, but the short answer is anything that's P3, P100 rated. Yeah, exactly. The Miles play games. The problem with a lot of this stuff is you always need, and this isn't even a prepper thing, it's just in general you need stuff before there's a massive demand on it, which is why it's always sensible to keep a bit of food in the cupboards, a bit of spare toilet roll at home. A lot of this stuff, because if you wait till there's an emergency, everybody else suddenly says, oh, I need this as well. And then the prices get inflated, places run out of stock. Mark IV NBC suits are fine, but they'll probably make your clothes quite smeared in charcoal or, like felt when you first take the suit off. Glad you find it interesting, Henry, and you've learned stuff. Right, glad I helped you out, E Junior or EJR. Person with a name I really love, Tesco Propaganda Ministry, said, my semi-disposable FFP3 mask has a rubber inner mask that makes a pretty good seal, especially if I wear a neckerchief over it to hold it tight to my face. That's a good idea, wearing something over it that pulls it tighter. But yeah, hopefully the rubber inner mask on that as well means it doesn't become useless as quickly from, getting too wet or whatever. That's the thing I like with the Soviet and Russian U2K, Y2K masks, because they actually put plastic in the side so they don't get damp from you wearing it too long and, stopping it working. Because basically it's got the entire mask is the filter medium, and then the air comes through these one-way valves on each side. And then when you breathe out, it only can go out the exhale valve or kind of, condense on the plastic. It's not going to damage the mask's foam and kind of cotton material inner layer because of, how they've designed it. I don't know why your kids would think you're mental if you've made the right decision, Gillian. But, Best mask, pick arms. It'll be what's most comfortable for you and fits the most things, that are suitable for you. As I've said before, my favourite mask is the Avon CT12 and the Spaziani TR2002. Or is it TR2012? TR2002, isn't it? But again, if that mask isn't going to make a comfortable fit to your face, it's certainly not going to be the best mask for you. I think they should be, Bob, or certainly, classes should be minimised. The stupid thing is they were saying under government emergency plans, they were thinking of putting more kids in a room together. It's like, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do, surely, because that's going to make it spread easier. Exactly, Jonathan. If that's all you've got, it's better than nothing. But again, you want to get the best thing possible. George says, at a nearby army ammo depot near my house, there's a warehouse full of M9A1s and M17 gas masks with all the filters. The hospitals asked me to have them. The hospital asked to have them, and the army said no. That's how selfish we are. Yeah, it's amazing stuff like that, isn't it? Especially if they're just literally surplus they're doing nothing with. And that's the thing I can never get. Like, if you've got a load of old stock that you're never going to sell, that you're not going to throw away either, that's just sitting there, why not give it or sell it, do something with it? But just saying we've got it, but nobody can have it and we're not going to use it ourselves, that's just pointless, isn't it? Serious Power, hello Sam. He said the teacher I used to work with are all saying they should close the schools. I have a feeling they just want a free holiday. Yeah, I mean, there's probably an attitude of that, but also schools are going to be a breeding ground for it, aren't they? Because all the kids packed in close together. When I went to school, a lot of teachers were quite elderly. So, they're at high risk if they're teaching classes full of infected kids, potentially. But my main worry is that if you have lots of kids in the school, they're going to possibly, spread it around each other, not know, come home to their parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, things like that, and make a lot of them ill or kill them, Sam said the thing to be is a pessimistic realist. Prepare for the worst, but don't expect it to happen. That way you can survive. To say it was overhyped. Yeah, exactly. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, But sadly, you get a lot of people that say stuff like, oh, you're some crazy conspiracy theorist. It's not going to be bad. And then it's constantly, getting worse and worse. And then they're just moving the goalposts of how bad it has to be, Oh, there's not this, there's not going to be this number of people infected, or this isn't going to close down, or this number of people aren't going to die, and then it happens. Oh, but now there's not going to be this number, Stupid, yeah. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I hope it doesn't get bad, but I think it will, But sadly, you get a lot of people, I said, that just seem to take this attitude of they say nothing will happen, and then later down the line they say, oh, wow, it won't get this bad, and then it does. Oh, well, it won't get this bad. Yeah, you can certainly use contact lenses with gas masks. That'd be the ideal thing. I personally hate contact lenses, but yeah, contact lenses in your eye with a gas mask over will be absolutely fine. Oh, yeah, especially if you're putting lots of kids on buses to get to school and stuff like that as well. Good point. Some said you're right, but the guy on Joe Rogan said closing the schools would prevent NHS medical staff doing their job, as kids don't seem to suffer from it. They might pass it on there. But the thing is, if a kid's at secondary school, they're going to be like 11, aren't they? They could be left home on their own. I know a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, but, or don't they have any relatives that kids could stay with, And I mean, not everybody works in the NHS or hospitals, do they? Like, how many percentage of kids do you think? Because at worst case scenarios, could they say, like everybody's going to be taught in the assembly hall or something like that? They're going to be spaced a certain distance away from each other, or something like that. I'm sure there's something they could do that's not just keep the kids going to school regardless. It depends, Tesco. There's ones that are P1, P2, and P3. You have to see when you get them which type they are, but different factories made them to different standards. So I think the ones I've got are P1, but there are some that are P2 and P3 rated. Or see if you can get a P3 one, get a P3 one. As if you mean spraying, rubbing alcohol near a door, John, yes. Travis says, here in Italy, we have a fairly serious situation. I used your alcohol-filled spray tip. It's very useful. Thanks. Stay safe. I know it's getting really bad in Italy. But sadly, you get a lot of people who are still taking the attitude it won't happen here. Even though we're just like a week or two behind Italy, I would imagine here. In theory, fast flight 60mm could have been better for air resistance, but you'll find most 60mm filters still have the same intake size as a 40mm filter, so it doesn't matter. It's still bottlenecking the airflow. Yeah, John, Spain's about a week behind Italy. High efficiency particulate air is normally the name they give to like air filters for like rooms or like Howard filters. They're the same level as protection essentially as P3, yes, but generally they're always referred to as HEPA filters when it's for like an air conditioning unit. Yeah, we were on about that earlier in the stream, Nordic, but yeah, hydrogen peroxide, again, is something like rubbing alcohol you can buy in spray bottles. I've been using my hydrogen peroxide recently to disinfect my ear, where I think I've got an ear infection. So it fizzes in the ear, it's a bit painful, but, you know, it does clear the wax out and, you know, seem to keep the swelling down. But hydrogen peroxide, again, is something that's quite useful for a lot of different jobs. I'd say look at what the quality of the mask looks like, Survive. If it looks like some really cheap, shitty masks, then I'd certainly not bother. Because I was seeing some videos where people were showing some really bad Chinese off-brand masks that you could literally rip with your hand like that. And they were like really flimsy with the straps as well. Again, what is your life worth? You know, if you're going to bother buying a mask, you might as well buy something that works. Again, when we say off-brands, like with full-face rubber and like, you know, half-face rubber masks, I say off-brands aren't too bad in terms of, you know, because there's lots of companies other than Avon and 3M and MSA and all those. But, you know, when it comes to, you know, especially if it's like a P3 sort of dust mask, N95 mask, I say be very careful with that because some of them are literally just trash. No, £60 is a good price for a 4A1 if it's in good condition. Tesco Propaganda Ministry. A while ago, I just said only pay £30 to £40, but at the moment, considering the prices of a lot of stuff, £60 isn't bad at all. Yeah, Israeli 4A1 masks are good. The M15 is the better of the two Israeli masks, but the 4A1, if you can get one, is still a good mask. Oh, I'm going off in a minute though, Rajiv, if you've just come on. Yeah, it's just Italy is ahead of everybody else. Give most other countries a week or two and you'll be seeing Italy's numbers as of now. It's just it got to Italy before other countries. That's all it is. Shout out to South Korea. Hello to South Korea, person's name I won't be able to pronounce, but I'm glad at least South Korea seems to be getting back on top of it again. I've got mixed feelings on the Reddit gas masks thing, Burning Orchard. Personally, if you want good gas mask advice, the gas mask official Discord is much better. The problem with Reddit is it's a Reddit, so as much as you get some people posting very useful information, those people could get thumbed down because somebody goes, I want a funny GP5 meme. Best MSA mask. Well, bear in mind, Survive MSA have made a lot of the US military masks as well, so you could get an M40 made by MSA and stuff like that. The only MSA masks I've got is technically that Polish Fernez, or Fernez is a licensed version of MSA mask. That's pretty good. But you can also get things like the MSA, you know, Advantage 410s, which are really nice because they're just like really good high quality rubber half face masks with a 40mm thread on them. Thank you again, Gretchen. So could you take a look, see at the NPC mask I bought? I send you a video when you have time tomorrow. Yeah, send me a video tomorrow at some point and I'll have a look. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, send a video at some point tomorrow, post it on YouTube, give me a link on Discord or whatever, and I can have a look. If you mean modern Polish ghost filters, look for Flying Cloud, look for Polish MP5 filters, or FP5, sorry, filters on eBay, or FP211 filters. They're not really GOST, they're normalized, but most seem to make a good seal to GOST masks. Not all of them do, but most do. I started streaming at 7 p.m. tonight, not 8 p.m. I did announce that on a few places that I was streaming earlier. But it's just because today I've been feeling a bit more under the weather again. I wanted to just, you know, have a bit of an earlier night tonight. So I thought if I stream earlier, then I can be, you know, done streaming a bit earlier. Thank you, Alex. He said, thanks for your answers in Discord. Cheers. That's all right. Yeah, for people who've donated and got me on Discord, if you want to ask a question about a mask, you can just PM me. I don't always check it that often, but when I see the message, I'll answer it. That's a good thing to do if I miss the question sometimes in the streams as well. Shot Zombie said, getting bad here. People are starting to hardcore panic and buying up stuff like mad. Yeah, I think that's happening pretty much everywhere. I mean, in some places it's worse than others, but in the UK, good luck trying to find decent brands of toilet roll in the shops. It's probably going to be the tracing paper stuff left soon if you want to wipe your ass. I'd say if you're in Spain, definitely get a mask. I'd say get a gas mask anyway, just because, if you don't find a use for it regarding corona, you're going to find a use for it over something else, even if it's just sanding or painting or something. George says, asking for a friend of mine, he wants to know if he could take his firefighter SCBA mask and somehow attach a 40mm filter to it, but he doesn't like hang foot around air tank either. The problem with firefighters' masks, George, is a lot of them aren't designed on airflow properly for use of filters. So, in theory, assuming he could screw a filter into it, if it has the right screw threads, he'll probably find it might fog up quite easily or stuff like that. It's not impossible to do it as a last resort, but generally, masks designed for positive air pressure, as in with a blower unit or with an air tank, don't really work with just a filter screwed onto the mask. And that's assuming you even have a way of screwing the filter onto the mask, because a lot of them just have the little airline clips. In what sense survive? Which particular mask? 3M or whatever else? But bayonet connectors are fine as long as you can get the filters. What was that? The Czech CM3 or the Czech CM4 lost in Europe? There's some debate whether how safe the CM3 or CM4 filters are, but I'd say as long as the filter is in good condition when you open it and check it, you could use that filter. I've used the CM3 and CM4 filters before and not really worried about it. The MF4 filter, is it called? I think. Just like the Polish MS4 filters I've used, I'm not really worried about it, because they're certainly built to a better quality than GB5 filter. Rarest gas mask I have. I've got two British C7 respirators, which are pretty rare. I've also got the German World War II VM44, which is fairly rare just because it was a last-ditch mask that was made of low-quality material, so a lot didn't survive. But BEM4GP is a better mask, assuming it's in good condition. Well, that applies to both the masks, really, but if they're around the same price point, I'd go for the BEM4GP. If the Polish MP5 is cheaper and it's in good condition, go for the MP5. But the BEM4GP is a very good mask. It has a nice swivel filter thing. I've done some videos on DIY masks before. Fan Mayhu, if you look them up. Just search my channel for them. Like DIY, homemade masks, search that and you'll find some. Some ended up better than others. The only one I'd really recommend out of the ones I masked was the mask I made was the one sort of cutting up an old pillowcase or some old sheets, whatever it was. Stapling them together in layers and then putting cords on it so I could use it as like a dust kind of fallout mask. If they're degradable baby wipes that you can flush down the toilet, yes. Otherwise, no, unless you're throwing them straight in the bin because you're just going to clog your plumbing. Kitchen roll might, again, be a bit hard on your ass and not break up properly in the toilet. So it's hard to say. It depends on really the materials they're made out of. Thank you, ASMR Keys. Let me add you. I am still adding people. If they donate, I'm still adding people. Let me just add you now. Home, add people. There we go. Right. I have sent you a friend request. Once you accept it, I'll invite you. Let me search that mask survive because I don't recognize the name. I'll be off in a minute though to everybody. Yeah, that looks absolutely fine. MSA is a good company, so just make sure you get the correct filters for it. It looks like they do a variant of that that's 40mm and a variant that takes bayonet filters. Ideally, go for the 40mm one. If not, go for the bayonet. But preferably, you always want 40mm because it's just a lot easier to get filters for it. Yeah. Right, I'll answer a couple more questions and then I'll go off. Waddle said, from where did you order your Avon drinking cap for the FM12? And since you said in your video the GSR system is a rip-off of the Avon, would a GSR bottle cap work for the FM12? It's basically the GSR cap is the same as the Avon one with a little bit attached, so no, sadly it won't work. If you look on eBay, let's see if some are on there. If not, I don't know because I just got mine off of eBay. Also, what you might be able to do, is, I imagine, yeah, by the look of it, only issue is if you get this, it might be the GSR cap on it. But in general, sometimes when you buy the old surplus Osprey bottles, the cap it will come with will either be an S10 or a, S10 FM12 with the same connector, or it will be a GSR connector. Right, when you say John Lemon charcoal filters for the GP5, I assume you mean the green Soviet filters. They contain charcoal and asbestos, so use at your own risk. If the seller says they don't contain asbestos, they're full of shit unless they're sending you a different filter with them, because they contain both charcoal and asbestos. They're not a mutually exclusive thing in a filter. At least a couple of spare filters per person, Charlie. So 3 or 4 filters per person. The more the better, but again, I need to set up a new one, Darfax, but I'm not ever planning on really bugging out in this sort of situation. But I need to do another one for a video because people have requested it. That was just asked Iron, and I said 3 or 4, but again, the more the better. But again, it depends if you want chemical resistance filters or just particle filters. The issue is with chemical filters is every few years you need to keep buying new ones because they run out of date, at least with particle protection filters for viruses and like fallout dust. You don't need to keep buying new filters because they only ever stop working when they clog or if you manage to break them somehow. Which German Draeger filter? This will be the last question I answer. I'll ask some preps before I go offline, unless anybody does a super chat, and then I'll answer that. But right, if you get a German mask from the Cold War and it comes with an old Zivel Schutz filter, don't use that. Those are the old ones that contain asbestos, as far as I'm aware. They're normally a brown colour. If you get the green ones, which are marked Haymac or Hayvac, something like that, normally from the 1980s, they should be safe. So hopefully that's answered your question. Don't forget to, as Alex said, don't forget to like the stream as you go off. Hope everybody's found this useful. But yeah. Which one are you on about, Henry? That's a bit vague. Modern style GP5. There's the Chinese ones if you're on about that one, but again, stuff might not even be shipping out of China at the moment. Some stuff is, some stuff isn't. I'd say look on the video and make a comment, and hopefully I'll spot it. But the easiest thing to do is just search eBay for masks, and you might find the one you're after. Right. See you, everybody. Good evening, and stay safe. Goodbye.